And welcome back, guys. And this week we have a fireside chat with you with Matt Frank. According to Wikizilla, Matt Frank is an American comic book artist and writer. He is the first to become known among kaiju fans for his Godzilla Neo project on DeviantArt, a series of redesigns and stories about Toho's many kaiju set in a single continuity. He was involved in IDW's publishing of Godzilla series from the beginning, drawing and retouching many of the 80s variant covers for Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters #1. After drawing interiors for Godzilla Legends #1, he became the main artist for Godzilla Rulers of Earth, which became the longest running Godzilla comic in the character's history. His final Godzilla comic for IDW was the critically acclaimed Godzilla Rage Across Time #1 in 2016, and a shipping error made the issue an instant collector's item. Matt even created 4 new Transformers characters, the Raptoricons, for the official Transformers Collector's Club. So quite a resume. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. You know, that's all pretty accurate. And it is funny how much of that intro I think is probably taken from people asking me questions on Tumblr.
Yeah,
the classic Tumblr interview.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean they ask the good questions, some hard-hitting ones, and they get some good replies. help us make some good intros, right?
Sure.
Well, we're super excited to have you here. We're huge kaiju fans amongst the show. I think we went back and forth for a long time on King Kong versus Godzilla. I think I say that, but I'm pretty sure I was the only one on the team that was pro Kong. So, you know,
it's funny. It is a legitimate.
No
it is
offense,
a legitimate. It is a legitimate point of conflict in certain parts of the fandom. One of the bigger Godzilla YouTubers, D-Man1954, was totally pro Kong, Team Kong, and I was even the one saying, at certain people would ask me, like, "Who do you think's going to win?" And I'm like, "Well, Kong's going to be the underdog, so he was probably going to win in some capacity." But I felt like the final film was very creative about it, very clever about it. So,
I mean, I certainly loved it. After the year we had, seeing a giant kaiju fight fest was very satisfying.
That was a great one, and I'm very excited for the Hollow Earth and just everything in that. That's going to be awesome. The lore they're building, I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny that lore. Right. So much of that Hollow Earth lore is actively taken from old school conspiracy theory thought, like the Hollow Earth that the reptilians live in, or whatever. Of course, nowadays conspiracy theory isn't fun anymore, but it used to be really fun, and that was the sort of stuff that was fun, like Lemuria and the Hollow Earth.
Because at that point, there was one time, I remember this, where like people that believe conspiracy theories were actually considered crazy among society. Fascinating time that was. Now they just elect you to be president. Womp womp. Anyway, speaking of things that make me wish that we had kaijus in real life, we've got some questions for you tonight, and we're super excited to get into them. I'm going to start us off with the first question of the night. If there's anything you could add to your Wikizilla intro that we topped off the show with, what would it be?
Well, it would probably be some stuff that's happened since 2016, 2017. But I mean,
fair enough.
I get it. Like, it's hard to. I sort of looked back over the last, the last 2 years, and I was kind of floored by like, oh yeah, I've done a lot of stuff, but I keep jumping from one thing to another, which is fairly common for a lot of artists. But you know, not to toot my own horn, but I did the the packaging art for the Blu-ray releases for the Gamera series, the Daimajin trilogy, and the original Tremors, all through Arrow Video. Yeah, it was. I looked back on that and I was like, oh yeah, I did all of that.
Yeah.
And I did the art for an Ultraman pinball machine that I think is out.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm not sure if it's out already, but it's very cool. I'm very excited to actually play one, get my hands on one. Oh yeah, I did some Marvel Ultraman covers for Marvel Comics because Marvel.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere that somewhere on your resume was that like worked at Marvel. I was like, God, that is just over all the things. You got Godzilla in there. We saw Power Rangers at one point and Marvel. I mean, there's That's a pretty fun badge
It's
to
very
wear.
cool. It's a good it's a nice feather in my cap to say that like
Right.
yeah, I worked on Marvel, and they'll be like, oh, what'd you work on? And it's like Ultraman. They're like, what is that?
Well, you get to just name drop that in conversations for the rest of your life. Well, there was this one thing I was working on this project with Marvel, and it was,
Yeah.
It's so funny you say that because I remember I saw a forum thread that talking about something I had been working on, and somebody mentioned how I don't know if I like Matt Frank very much because he kind of name drops a lot and he humble brags a lot, and I'm sitting here over here and I'm thinking like, I guess I do that, but it's just because I'm very excited that I get to like hang out with people.
Well, I mean, I could see that. I saw that in some of your YouTube content. I was looking through it, and like you were going, I think it was one video where you were going through this like Gamera statuette, right? And like everything, you're just like, I love his goofy little. And I was like, it seems to me like you're doing something that you love doing, because like you just like even the campy elements of Gamera, you were like, oh man, it doesn't have this or anything like that. You're genuinely excited about it. And if I was working on something I was genuinely excited about, I'd want to tell everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just excited, and I want to share it with people. That's one of the biggest challenges of in my life, is that a lot of the people in my life personally have no idea what I'm talking about 40% of the time. And so as a result, I'm just like, if there's an opportunity that I can kind of maybe brag a little bit, we're like, oh yeah, I went to dinner with Shinya Ishikawa and Hiroshi Sagai and Ryuki Kitaoka. No big deal. One of them was an Ultraman, so whatever. And I'm just like, no big deal. The other one like designed half of Godzilla's monsters from 1989 to 2004. But yeah, and so. But again, it's like that stuff's only name dropping. It's only humble bragging in a very, very specific part of the internet. So,
That's true. But that very specific part of the internet crowned you the Kaiju King, right? Where did that moniker come from?
It's funny because I was thinking about that recently. That came from a T-shirt that my friend Patrick King, who is he's also an artist and a designer. He's on Twitter. He designed. He and I went to college together, and as a gift one year, he made a shirt that just said Kaiju King on it with a little Godzilla on it as well, just as a gift. And I still have it somewhere, but like I'm in the middle of packing a bunch of stuff and doing a bunch of things in my house, and I'm like, I don't know where it is at the moment, but I know I still got it. And somehow that got around. And later it got around, and some cons started referring to me that way in their promotional materials. And then my Japanese publishers started calling me that in their promotional materials. So I just started I was just like, all right, I'm not going to shy away from it.
That's when it's real too.
There you go.
Japanese publishers start going for it. Like, in America, they're just now learning the word kaiju. And so,
yeah.
Right.
I mean, well, here's how I know it's real. Is I have this here. Now, this was a gift from a fan of mine in Japan. And it's a little set of hanko, of Japanese stamps that you use for signatures. One of them has my name. It just says Mato. And the other one says Kaiju All, which means Monster King, or Kaiju King. So now I'm like,
oh, that's awesome.
Well, then that's me, I guess.
It's a fun.
If the stamp fits, you know.
So that's how I know it's like, okay, guys, I don't have any control over it anymore. This is outside of my. I can't tell people no.
It's an easy one to fall into.
Yeah.
Right.
But, Don talked about it a little bit earlier, all the other kind of like projects you've worked on. You've worked on a plethora of other titles outside of Godzilla, to be honest, from Adventure Time to Rugrats to Power Rangers to Mars Attacks. Outside of Godzilla, what would you say has probably been your favorite franchise to work on?
Oh, that's really tough because, I mean, it's easy for me to just default to other kaiju-centric franchises and genres and stuff. But if I had to get outside of that for a little bit, Transformers has been really good to me for a long time. I mean, Transformers was what got me in to IDW. Then beyond that, I was able to work on all this other stuff because then they got the license for Godzilla not long after I had worked with them on Transformers stuff. And I'm still doing Transformers stuff. I recently worked on a deck building game for Renegade Studios. Still doing some stuff with Transformers that I can't really talk about. It was fun. It was fun seeing the Wikizilla talk about the Raptoricons because someone just recently did some fan art of those characters, and every time I see somebody do fan art of them, or two people I knew cosplayed as them, and that made me so giddy because they were created for a prose story I also wrote right before the Collectors Club was functionally shut down, because Hasbro was like, we want to go do our own thing. We're going to make our own convention. We don't want to do BotCon anymore, which then by extension, the Collectors Club. So that was like one of the last things that they had, and by that point it had kind of gotten buried. So it's just nice to see that stuff pop up every now and then. Outside of that, I really like it whenever I get to work on Power Ranger stuff.
No, those are both like huge titles, and I could see why they would have been awesome to work on both of them. The one that stuck out to me, I'm not gonna lie, Mars Attacks. That was the Tim Burton movie. It was something like it. Literally, as soon as I saw that on there, I was like, something got pulled out of my subconscious from childhood. And was just like, oh my god, he even got to work on these the Mars Attacks comics, which is phenomenal because I loved that movie as a child.
And you made new Transformers, the Raptoricons. I mean, how many people get to say that they made new Transformers?
I mean, a lot of the other artists who have worked on Transformers comics, they get to sometimes make new characters. Like my friend Sakamoto-san got to make Nickel, who's this little teeny tiny Decepticon medic who like everyone immediately fell in love with, even though he's better known for doing kind of sexier Transformers, which is something that they just started kind of started.
That's an
leaning
interesting
into.
Concept.
But on both sides, not just both sides, but on all sides of the playing field, like what's your preference? We got a Transformer for you. But I was trying to think. With the Mars Attacks thing. That was really kind of came out of nowhere because, again, IDW, they wanted me to do some covers, so I started doing covers, and just a handful of them. The big one that was like really special was doing the Mars Attacks Transformers crossover comic.
Yeah, I saw that cover as well, that you had done the work there. That was really cool. Really cool artwork.
Yeah, I got to, I didn't do the cover for that one, but I did do the interiors. And the interiors, I partnered with Josh Perez, who's a longtime colorist collaborator. And I told him, like, we need to do this, like, G1 style. This needs to have a Generation 1, very cartoony style. And I really got to have fun with it. Although I think I made that entire issue in 2 weeks. So there's a ton of art errors. like Ironhide got his arm blown off at one point, and so he strapped it to his back and kind of carried it around. The arm keeps changing, like it keeps like being either his left arm or his right arm, depending on where the thumb is. So yeah, that's just what happens. I mean, I'm kind of on a similar deadline right now where I'm just scrambling to get stuff done, and I'm like, what shortcuts can I do?
Another hard question for you, and kind of in the vein, Transformers has always been a huge blockbuster hit, and Godzilla's always been one that, Hollywood seems to keep going back to. What would you say is kind of one of your favorite comic book movies of all time?
That's a really tough question because I think that a lot of people tend to look at the current crop of comic book movies as though like, well, this is the end all be all. Like this is going to be the best of the best of this stuff moving forward. And I like the current stuff a lot. I was surprised how much I liked Aquaman. I thought Aquaman was like the greatest He-Man movie ever made.
That was a pretty solid one, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see the parallels there.
Yeah, it's very silly.
I can see it too.
Very silly, but that's kind of what I liked about it.
Yeah.
You got stuff like Shazam. I really enjoyed the recent Suicide Squad. I thought that was I was surprised how much I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
the latest Suicide Squad would make a ton of sense because of you're the Kaiju King, you know. So,
Right.
Well, yeah,
Right.
I was surprised that they just kind of went for it. Like, they didn't try to overthink Starro.
Yeah.
They didn't try to overthink that character. They were just like, here it is. It's this big, goofy, floppy starfish monster. It's just, that's literally what it is. And I just really appreciated that. I just liked the movie a lot. I would say that one that I don't think gets enough credit, if I were to say, like, literally, again, manga to screen, is the first Attack on Titan live-action movie. I don't think that movie gets a lot of credit for kind of taking a sort of a Jaws-esque or Jurassic Park-esque approach to the source material, where we're going to take the basic framework and the basic characters and the basic structure, and we're just going to adapt it. And we're going to shuffle some things around so it can function as a cohesive narrative. But again, because they changed stuff, people hated it, which is really unfortunate because, again, all the Titans are practical effects. They're all either people in suits or makeup. And I think that's the thing that makes the Titan aspect work. And then, you know, considering it had a really small budget compared to a lot of Hollywood films, I thought it did pretty well. And I don't know. I've got a lot to say about that movie, so we're just going to move on.
No, actually, I mean, that's a good review.
That's a good
though,
pick.
because I've never checked it out. I'm always a little skeptical about, you know, the anime live actions, right? Like Netflix, I think burned me. I'm such a big Death Note fan, and I watched that one, and then I was like, never again.
Still hurts. Let's go back for a second, though. Let's go all the way back, all right? What was the first sketch or drawing that you can remember?
Oh, shit. I mean, I remember as a little kid drawing dinosaurs, like just dinosaurs because I love dinosaurs and I just wanted to draw them. I have some of my earliest sketches, drawings and stuff, and a lot of them were kind of like, some of them were copied from Trendmaster's Godzilla trading cards, where I copied that artwork, the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs box art or something, or drawing Sonic the Hedgehog. And I do remember like drawing my dinosaurs a certain way and then finding like a how to draw dinosaurs book. And it was very like, here's a circle, here's a cone, here's another cone. That's a T-Rex. And I was like, oh, is that how you're supposed to draw dinosaurs?
Yeah.
So,
you know, and it's crazy, like, not to get down a whole rabbit hole, but there was actually a study done, and kids would draw better birds before someone told them M's. You know, the little M's that people draw for birds? They did a whole study.
Yeah.
Kids drew birds way better, like with more detail and more like kind of creative takes on birds, because, you know, they're kids. And then after they were shown like the little M and were told, oh, that's a bird, all of them started to draw birds that way. And so it became kind of this interesting study into like, you know, before you're told like how to do something, that's when you're at your like core creativeness, you know, because like you don't really know how to do it, you're just creating. And so that's really sorry.
No. That is honestly a fascinating topic, because I have a lot of magazines and books and stuff from Japan, and the drawings that kids make in Japan are fascinating to me because, you know, they don't really have a command of anatomy or spatial awareness, but they get the details. Like, they'll do a drawing of a very specific Ultraman, and his head will be kind of lumpy, and his eyes will be too small, and his arms will be like one's longer than the other, but they will get all the patterns on the body, and they'll get like the color timer and the little star marks and stuff. So they'll get the details. So I just think that's kind of fascinating when they're not trying to directly copy something or being told how to do something.
I feel like I got like the inverse of that when I was a kid, because when I was a kid, the first thing I liked to draw was big monsters fighting, right? And I had one person tell me one time, I was like, why do you always draw that? That's not really art. That's just, you know, and so I did end up actually giving up on that, but not because of that, but like just because it didn't find my interest. And also because someone told me that it wasn't really art, you know, to do at the time. And then now, flash forward to now, and I'm interviewing you, who literally makes a living off of drawing giant monsters fighting. I was looking through that the other day, and I was thinking about that comment. I was like, God damn it, that fucker lied to me.
I wanted to answer Cape's question earlier about my favorite comic artists. Art Adams is a great one. That's he's one of the guys that I like kind of learned how to draw by looking at his stuff in a lot of ways. Guys like, again, Shinji Nishikawa, who worked on the Godzilla films and also did manga. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but he's the guy who made Black Sad, which is an incredible comic. It's like, especially if you're a furry. But it's like, but no, it's like legitimately beautiful, like film noir. Every frame is literally a painting, but all the characters are anthropomorphized animals. There's a whole volume.
Yeah,
furries
are gonna love
that
shit.
takes place in upstate New York that where literally the white supremacists are all albino or Arctic animals, so they all have white fur.
That's wild.
We've been checking out your background this entire time, and you've got a very impressive of Godzilla paraphernalia, or kaiju paraphernalia, all paraphernalia in general. If you had to pick one of your favorites, what would it be and why?
That's a really good question, because I've got a little shelf over here that's just Trendmasters Godzilla stuff specifically. Like that stuff, that stuff I've had since I was a little kid. My grandma bought a bunch of that for me. Awesome. It's tough to choose between that. I've got a couple of pieces that aren't in frame that I really also truly love. One of my recent favorites is this guy here.
Look at the boy.
He's my
He's a large boy. He's a thick boy.
Chunker, this Godzilla, and he is the 1991 Bandai Godzilla. That's just like they don't make them this big anymore. Not like affordable Bandai figures. Although this guy still was probably about $80-$90 when I got him. But yeah, I really love this figure. There's another one I've got somewhere else in the house that I'm very fortunate I was able to get a hold of. That was a super limited edition Godzilla based on the original concept art design, which gave him like big, thick carp scales. Like he had big fishy scales and like a fin, and his face looked like a Japanese demon. And it was a super limited run, and I was able to get a hold of one for way more money than I'm comfortable admitting. But I'm really proud of that one too.
Flying Turtle Boy.
He's a friend of mine.
Speaking of though, Godzilla has fought a ton of monsters over the years, and in your opinion, as a Godzilla expert, right? Who's been the best? Who's given the big guy the biggest run for his money, if you will?
I think that because there's the big five are the ones that Toho refers to as internally as the big five: Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, Mechagodzilla, and King Ghidorah. The one that I think that people often underestimate and are often kind of flabbergasted as to why is Mothra. Mothra really gives Godzilla a hard time when they fight, because Mothra doesn't fight the way Godzilla fights. She's not a brawler. She doesn't do the pew pew pew, not since the 90s. And unfortunately, she's kind of been recast as Godzilla's waifu in recent years, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that I think they have a fun dichotomy.
Yeah.
The way they complement each other. Yeah. But it's that complement that also leads to really good contrast. So when they fight, it's just very I think it's always an interesting fight, and it's always going to be a good fight. But aside from her, Hedorah the Smog Monster, I think, was an enemy that I really think needs to come back. I think we really need to bring Hedorah back, because that character is terrifying. Godzilla didn't even really technically defeat it on his own. He needed like this convoluted man-made trap in order to dehydrate Hedorah. So I would really like to see that character come back.
That would be a good one. That would be a good one. You talk about the big five. My boy Rodan over there. I feel like he gets left out of the equation so much, but that's just me.
Well, he's kind of he is a little bit of an also ran when it comes to Godzilla, because he's great and I love Rodan. Yeah. He's just another destructive reptilian force of nature. Yeah, which is again he does work great when he's approached in an interesting way, but I think he sort of gets lost in the shuffle sometimes because again Mothra and Ghidorah complement Godzilla so much better.
He's kind of like the Hulk of the Monster 5, right? He like works good as a put in to other part of stories, but like probably couldn't.
I mean, he had one.
Or would you agree?
He had one really good movie that back in the 50s. That the original Rodan, well, the original Rodan is really good and really interesting up until it kind of just, and it's a good movie and it's really well done, but it kind of it stops being as interesting as when it started once it just becomes about Rodan fighting the military, and it gets very visually arresting and the ending is very cool. But again, that drama and that tension kind of falls by the wayside once it just becomes the military versus Rodan.
I had a little classic collection and it had that Rodan film in there. I liked it I feel like I always enjoyed it as a kid for the first half of the movie. And then after that, as you were saying, when it's just Rodan fighting the military, it does get a little bit repetitive. So I get your point there.
Completely out of left field, nothing to do with kaijus or anything. It has almost been an entire year since we've gotten an episode of Disaster Quest. What made you and your friend Rebecca start playing all of the Zelda games, and which one's been your favorite so far?
Well, to speak to the point of where did Disaster Quest go? We had a double. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll start with the beginning of it, because Rebecca is one of my best friends, and she and we got this idea where we wanted to start maybe doing podcasts and start doing Let's Plays, because she started doing Let's Plays. So we started doing Disaster Quest, and we knew we were in trouble when we realized, we've got to do it in timeline order. So we started with Skyward Sword, and it's really a shame we didn't wait until there was the Switch port, because man, that Wii version is rough.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, I played that Wii version. And you got to get the special controller. That was the most inconvenient part of it, is that I had to get that special controller for it.
And we got to the second or third of the imprisoned fights, and we were just like, oh hell no. At a certain point, she fought that character so many times, and she just threw the controller down and said, we're done. We're not finishing it. We're done. So we did a video explaining why we weren't going to do it. We were going to finish it. So we moved on to Minish Cap, and Minish Cap was a lot of fun. We had a really good time with that. And then we started doing Ocarina, and we started having recording problems with Ocarina because the software we were using wasn't compatible with it for some reason. And then the pandemic started, and so it became this real concern about we probably need to stay apart for a while. And and it was just one of those things that kind of fell by the wayside, because again, we knew we didn't want to just abandon Ocarina of Time, but neither of us have had the bandwidth to figure out how to get this to work properly. So I'm sure we'll come back to it. We were she and I were just talking the other day about how, oh man, I really miss doing podcasts and I miss goofing around.
Well, we got you here, so that's good.
I mean, I never stopped doing podcasts. I just mean podcasts with her specifically, where we yell about theme parks for an hour.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So but I appreciate you bringing that up. I'll definitely have to make sure that I tell her oh, guess what? I talked about Disaster Quest for a little while.
There you go.
I thought it was a great idea. I was like, oh man, playing through each one of the Zelda games, especially if either of them haven't played each one of them, that would be just such a phenomenal experience, you know? And but like you said, if you do it the right way, you got to start in order. And if that's the fact, I think I'm gonna wait and do my full playthrough maybe 10 years from now when they're all a Switch port. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, of course, then Breath of the Wild came along, and I'm like, I don't think I can play any other Zelda games now. I like jumping.
Well, Breath of the Wild does have kaijus, though.
What's that?
There's that. Breath of the Wild does have kaijus, though, so there's that, you know.
I guess.
They got the trolls. They got the dragons. I mean, those are kaijus,
I'm
right?
gonna learn you kids a thing or two. No, it's just the thing that's so funny is because I will have conversations with other podcasters, other geeks I know, and they'll say things like, so do you just like a big thing? Do you just like it when there's a big thing somewhere? And I'm like, no, that's not what makes a kaiju. I mean, the definition is extremely nebulous, and there's nothing wrong with that kind of cross-pollination, but I guess I'll use a really good example, which is the monsters in Monster Hunter. I would not classify as kaiju, because they are endemic species to the world they exist in. These are naturally occurring creatures. Now, there's always a little bit of fuzziness there, but how do you define what a kaiju is? It's more like when you see it, you know it, or it'll make it very obvious that this is a kaiju because of X, Y, and Z. For example, a kaiju is very rarely just a big thing. It's not just a big animal. Like the Kong from the Peter Jackson version, I would not classify as a kaiju because it really is just a giant silverback that's kind of classified as its own, as the last of its own species, made up for the movie. But the Kong from Skull Island, from the newer Kong in Godzilla vs. Kong, I would classify that Kong as a kaiju because, again, he's not just a giant gorilla. There's something weird and crazy to his history, and there's this whole backstory. There's just always a level of weirdness to kaiju that makes them not.
They're kind of like superhero monsters in a way. Like they have an origin story, right? They have something that's different about them. With Godzilla, it would be all of his, atomic anatomy and all the. Well, there's a lot of different takes on Godzilla, right? But he's obviously he's almost always something that's been mutated because of radiation in some shape or form.
There's always. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just I love how the newer one we're starting to get more of like a real kind of like. Because I feel like the Godzilla that came out whenever I was a kid, so I think like 93 or whatever that was, like 95,
1998.
98. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I believe they tried to almost insinuate in that movie that Godzilla was essentially like an iguana that just was like around nuclear waste or something. And that always I was like, that's not God. Godzilla's not like some lizard that like drank a little bit of like some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle goo.
I think that a lot of us who were younger and who were Godzilla fans and saw that movie, we kind of felt the same way. I appreciated how in the animated series they made it a lot more ambiguous, like what Godzilla was. But man, like I would say a really good example of what a kaiju is was specified in the new Godzilla Singular Point anime, where in the show they describe kaiju as akin to being errors in the algorithm of the universe itself. Like a kaiju is something that should not exist, but it does. It exists in defiance of reality itself, which is why whenever the certain movies or TV shows or whatever will describe kaiju as Gaia's vengeance or something, like they're protectors of balance and stuff, it's like these are radioactive monsters. A lot of them are just kind of anti-life. I mean, then you got some guys like Gamera, who in the 90s version was sort of presented as, yes, he is the sort of guardian spirit of the earth itself, but he was still created by people. He was created by people to be a vessel for the earth spirit or something. It's very vague. So it's that's not to say I don't like those kaiju-esque elements in the Zelda games. Like, I loved it when I first saw a dragon in Breath of the Wild. I was like, what the hell is that? What is that? I get over to that. Oh God, it's lightning. Oh God, lightning kills you in this game? What the hell? And so that whole like first 20 minutes of being not on the plateau was mostly me screaming and pooping. So it just
That is
Yeah.
one
Fair.
of the few games I do. I wish I could go back and play it for the first time, because the first time is
Yes.
just,
Right.
oh my god, it's so phenomenal.
Absolutely,
It
absolutely.
really is. It really is. Matt, it's been awesome to say the least. We've got a few rapid fire questions
All right.
before we go to get things heated
I'm
up.
ready.
All right, you ready? All right, Marvel or DC?
I guess I have to say Marvel because I'm contractually obligated.
Fair enough. Star Wars or Star Trek? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That one.
Yeah. Star Wars or Star Trek?
I sure do like lightsabers, but Star Trek.
Xbox, PlayStation, or PC?
Okay.
PlayStation, kind of by default.
Oh, nice, nice. Theaters or couch?
Oh shit. A really, really, really good theater experience will always trump a couch.
There you go. Agreed.
I'm there with you too. Sweet or savory?
Same.
Yeah.
Liquor
I'm
or
savory
beer?
actually.
I'm gonna go with liquor if it's again really sweet.
The sweet tooth kicking in.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Pew pew pew. Rapid fire, baby. Always a good time. Well, Matt, I know we've already taken a lot of your time. It's been an absolute blast, man. Talking about kaijus and giant monsters and all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Before we go, anything you got to plug?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any new?
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, you guys everybody can find my stuff if you go to mattfrankart.net and you go to the links page that has a link to all my stuff. I am on Patreon, patreon.com/mattfrankart. I've got the Twitter, I've got the Instagrams. Generally, if you just Google Matt Frank and Godzilla, you'll find my stuff pretty easily. Couple of things that I'm gonna be working on, or gonna be shilling here pretty soon. I've got an original comic series called Miss Medusa's Monstrous Menagerie that's going to be launching on Kickstarter this month. It's going to be through Unlikely Hero Studios. It's an original story that I've developed with writer and co-artist Paul Hanley. It's really exciting. I'm also working on another comic book called Dinosaur War Eisenborg, which is an adaptation of a anime tokusatsu hybrid from Japan from the 1970s. I am also working with Nakatomi Inc., which is a print company based out of Austin. We got the Ultraman license, and we had two prints, Alex Ross and Tom Whalen, both incredible artists in their own right. They both we have had Ultraman prints for both of them. I'm going to be doing a print as well pretty soon, and that's my obligated shill for Ultraman goodness. We're playing Metroid Dread on Rage Select. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no,
That's
game
awesome.
Looks really good so far.
Very cool. Very
I'm
cool.
so excited.
It is the new one, right?
We've got a lot of people in our community that are just absolutely going
Yeah,
crazy.
we just did a playthrough of Metroid Fusion.
We're gonna show when we come
Playthrough of
back.
it, and the whole time I'm just like, what the hell is happening? And then, and Dread is going to be the first time Jeff and I play it, and it's just going to be a ton of fun.
Well, since
Nice,
this will actually
nice.
be premiering on Twitch, I just have to ask, when is Mattzilla85 going to be live again?
Oh man. Well, turns out my assistant Caston really enjoys the Godzilla the series animated series from the late 90s, and she wants to keep watching it. So we're gonna try to figure out a way to live stream us watching those, do little watch parties and stuff. Because the last one we did, where we raised money for the Lilith Fund, was a really big success. We had a lot of people, so we're really hoping to do that again.
Oh, before we go, our top Zen this week is our top 10 favorite kaijus. Who's your vote for number
My
one?
vote for number one? Oh crap. Well, I don't just want to say Gamera. I'm just gonna say Gamera. I have some more hipstery choices that I usually fall back on, but I just friggin' love that turtle, and ever
It's
since
the go.
Ever since working
you know?
on the box set for Arrow, I've just completely fallen back in love with them all over again. So I'm gonna say Gamera.
You tried to act
Yeah.
like that was like your, I don't want to say that, but I do. Godzilla would have been the one that I would have assumed would be that.
Yes.
Godzilla's my favorite franchise, but those three Gamera movies from the 90s are pretty friggin' good,
Awesome.
Well, thanks again so much, Matt, for joining us. Shout out to everything you got there. Find Mattzilla85 live, and we'll transition back to Future Dodd.